Good afternoon. I am Meredith Jones, and I am president of the Maine Community Foundation, which is one of the partners in helping to make today happen. My job today is really to make the transition between what happened this morning and what's going to happen this afternoon. But let me just say a couple of words before I introduce Colleen Quint. One is, we heard Tony talk this morning in a very compelling but sobering way about what we are likely to face here in Maine, as in many other parts of the United States, for the near term and maybe longer than the near term, and the need for greater accountability in higher ed and making stronger connections between what happens in higher education and the workforce. So that's what we heard this morning, followed by Maine employers who spoke in fairly eloquent fashion about what they are doing to encourage all of their employees to take one or two more steps toward achieving degrees in higher education. And while the examples they used were partnerships with a community college, I think it's important to say that there are partnerships with community colleges, there are partnerships with the Department of Labor and other departments in state government, and also partnerships with our four-year institutions who are working more closely than ever with the employer community. We also heard that there are lots of pieces of this issue. There's the K-12 piece, there's the early childhood piece. We're really focused on the higher ed piece today. And we know here in Maine that we will never achieve our goals by focusing all of our attention singularly on the traditional 18 to 24 age population, that working with the incumbent workforce is key to the success for us to achieve our goal of having a better higher education attainment rate than we currently have. So now we're really going to talk about the role that public policy plays and state government plays in this issue. There are lots of different actors and players and pieces, certainly the higher ed institutions, the employer community, but government plays a key role in funding and guiding and focusing the agenda on education here in Maine. So to set the agenda, we have developed the white paper that's in your blue folder. It's also accessible on the Compact website and will be on the Maine Community Foundation's website and probably the Maine Development Foundation's website as well. And assuming that many of you have not read every single word in this white paper, we're going to set up this afternoon's gubernatorial forum by asking one of the co-authors, Colleen Quint, to summarize the key points that are in this white paper. So let me now introduce Colleen. Colleen is the executive director of the George J. Mitchell Scholarship Research Institute, founded by the senator, that awards $5,000 scholarships to a graduating senior in every public high school in Maine. In addition to scholarship support, I'm aware that the Institute not only does research, but does coaching and leadership training with all of the scholarship recipients, and actually works with the college graduates after they are no longer in the post-secondary educational system. Prior to becoming director, Colleen served as an education attorney. She has worked in the Attorney General's office. She has also been an editor of the Christian Science Monitor. But what you will not find on her resume, and what I think is even more interesting, is that she can tell you whether the Red Sox paid too much for Dice K, whether Lowell really ought to retire, as he says he is going to do, and whether Ellsbury and Pedroia will come back next season all fit and ready to go. Ms. Quint.
Thank you very much, Meredith. And for those of you who are wondering, the answers are yes, no, no, yes. So I want to thank everybody for being here. The Compact is a great organization that I've been involved with, as has Joe and many other folks in the room, for a long time. And under Henry's leadership, it's been terrific to see how this annual gathering, what we call the symposium, has grown, and to have the number of folks in the room today from start to finish. Folks were here early this morning and really, I think, got a lot. I know that I did from the morning presentations, and we hope that the afternoon presentations will be just as rich for you. I also want to especially thank the gubernatorial candidates for being here after I rather ungracefully kicked you all off the stage so people could see the PowerPoint. But you know, the candidates, in all seriousness, the candidates, I think we all have an appreciation for what they take on for themselves personally by making a commitment to run for higher office, particularly the office of governor, and knowing that each of them has to make very tough decisions every day about what they're going to do with their time. And which of the many, many invitations that come across their desk they're going to be willing to and able to accept. So to me, it says something very important to me personally, as well as for all of us in the room who are advocates for higher education, that this is a priority for you to choose to spend your time here. And so I just want to say thank you to each of you for that. This is the point before I launch into my remarks when I usually do make a pithy comment about the Red Sox. The best I can do right now is to say that we are not mathematically eliminated yet. All right, now down to business. So I'm going to start off with just a couple of very basic overview items for you to make sure that we're all on the same page. As Meredith alluded, I certainly don't have any expectation that each of you in the room has carefully dissected every page of the white paper, but I do hope that most of you have had the opportunity to at least take a skim through and you know, gather a few of the high-level points of information there. And that's what I want to try to do right now, is just to reinforce that a bit. So the compact's goal, you've heard reference to this today, but it bears repeating, and it bears, for those of us who are visual learners, it always helps me when I can see something up there. So the compact's goal is to increase Maine's educational attainment to exceed the New England average by 2020. In order to do that, we need to have 40,000 net new degree holders above current projections. That's everyone already in the pipeline, plus 40,000 more. In a state with a population the size of Maine's, I think you have an appreciation for what a challenge that is, but it's clearly where we need to get to. There is also the making the case part. I have to say that hearing Tony Carnevale speak today, he's somebody whose work I'm quite familiar with. He made this morning what I would consider to be the best case for the inextricable link between an educated workforce and the future of the economy that I've personally heard. I thought he was really just phenomenal, and I really am grateful to Henry and to others for getting him here today, so we had the benefit of hearing that from him firsthand. So I always talk about how the state's economic prosperity and educational attainment are inextricably linked and directly correlated. And while I didn't put this on the PowerPoint, if you have your report in front of you and you take a look at page 5, there's a map in here that shows you basically everything that Tony talked about this morning boiled down and represented right here for the state of Maine. And you can see that in the parts of the state where there is higher education, there is higher prosperity. And in the parts of the state where educational attainment is lower, there is lower prosperity. So that correlation is absolutely direct and is really what we need to focus on. The data about workforce needs that Tony shared and also that John Dorer and others here in Maine have done a lot with tell us some really, really important things. We know that job growth in Maine in the next 10 years is projected to have 15,000 additional jobs in the state that will require post-secondary education or training. That compares with 2,200 that will require only a high school diploma. So you can, that's not even like a close, that's this folks right here. Also, job vacancies in the next 10 years, and that's when you take into consideration not just new job openings or new job growth, but jobs that are open because someone has retired or left the workforce. 59% of those are going to require post-secondary credentials. If we're at 37% in the adult workforce right now holding post-secondary credentials, and we need to get to 59% in the next 10 years, again, the hill is pretty steep for us. The barriers are real. Many of you in the room are probably familiar with the work the Mitchell Institute has done on looking at the traditional high school age population and talking about barriers to post-secondary education for those students. Certainly chief among them is cost, and particularly in the state of Maine, that cost as it relates to per capita income is a significant barrier. The lack of college tradition in our families and in the workforce is also significant. You know, Maine is, again, you heard great examples from Tony this morning about increased automation and the increased education that requires. You can't walk out of the mill with your high school diploma in one hand and shake the foreman's hand and get a job the next day. anymore. That's just really not an option in Maine. And all the traditional industries are changing.